So just a couple more minutes and then we're ready to start. Okay, I think we can start with a little intro and then as people join, they can partake in a deep dive. Hi, Liviu.
Hi, Alina. Hi, everyone.
Really nice having you and thank you for accepting our invitation. I feel like it's the first time being at the webinar together, but we've been knowing each other for over 10 years now. So there's much to cover, but it will be really nice to cover some of the aspects from the roles that we have and from the market and visibility that we have from the companies that we represent and some of the knowledge that we can share with the world, and hopefully we can rally more people into the subject and create a bigger impact for the future into the remote work, because this is where we are right now. And to kind of give a glimpse of how I met you, I think we met 10 years ago and you were working for a large corporation, one of the biggest, if I'm not mistaken. And since then, you were a very entrepreneurial profile, very hands-on, handled even then the region, I believe. And you're working for an insurance company, one of the best, Marsh.
Yes.
So if you can tell us a little bit about, what it meant to be an entrepreneur or intrapreneur into a large corporation and then switch over to entrepreneurial life, some of the goods, the bads, and the hurdles, and where you are now and how things have changed in the meantime.
Right. Yes. So we've known each other since teenagehood. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, for the audience, sure.
Yes. To complement Zoom's filters and
Yes.
So yes, I was for a very long time a corporate guy, building a team, but I've always been quite entrepreneurial. Actually, my brother did this family tree and looked into the history and so on, and we've noticed that all of the generations past have started a business successfully or not, but everybody tried at some point, even those that lived sort of most of their lives within communism. So I always had an urge to do something on my own, to build something. Even as a kid, I was this builder. I would gather the other kids and start building something, and that's what I enjoy doing. And I think as an entrepreneur, you get a lot of that. You get a lot of hassle as well, but truth be told. But yeah, I always had this urge to do something on my own. Bart was a great place. Actually, I fell into a growing organization. So I came in as employee 50 something, and I left it when the Romanian operation had 150, 170 people. So quite a lot. And I had a regional role for most of my time there, and I got to do a lot of building, which I liked. In two different roles, I started as a marketer, built a team across Central and Eastern Europe and CIS. So that was nice. There was a building work, and then I did something called consumer and commercial affinity. So I did these insurance distribution programs with built telcos, retailers, and the likes. So I always had a distributed team because this is a big topic today, not just for our call here, but generally in the world. So I had to do that from day one. And I think here in Central and Eastern Europe, you kind of have to, because the market is so fragmented. So I think we're kind of a lot better than most other people at working across borders, cultures, languages, and all this. And then, yes, I throughout the pandemic, I came across this idea to start Inki, which is a device as a service business, which works specifically well for distributed teams, for those that work remotely, for those that want to have an agile business. And we are positioned as the world's first all-inclusive device as a service. That means that companies of all sizes outsource to us their laptops, phones, tablets, and all the hassles related to repairs, move them from one country to the other. Insurance is bundled in. All of the device life cycle from beginning to end is handled by us. We give them a platform to streamline things in terms of operations, but also in terms of cash flows and all of that. So yeah, the business started scaling quite well, and we're now present in multiple countries, and we have a distributed team as well. So we adopted that from day one. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell about me, where I've been and sort of where I'm going.
Just to make sure we set a great foundation for the rest of our talk, because maybe not all people that will join the webinar work in distributed teams, although it's our market, both for Inki and native teams. Remote companies is the target audience for us. But just to set a proper ground, right? How would you define distributed teams, and how do they differ from regular teams or teams as we used to know them? Because now probably the norm is also shifting a little bit. But I'm very interested how you see it, and moreover, what is the point of having distributed teams? Why we have distributed teams?
It's a difficult question, because nowadays the definition has broadened. We see most of our clients work remotely to some degree. So you'll have, I would layer it up. So I would say there are companies that do a hybrid type of work where, some of the days of the week, the employees can work from home. So the availability to work from home. Others that are allow them to work from home, though all of them in a sort of geographical space around a certain city, or that there is a clear base around a geographical location. There are others that do something called hub and spoke. Basically, they have one big center, and then they have other smaller centers with offices that colleagues might go in or not, just in order to have a better coverage of a larger geography. And I think that's an interesting model that has scaled for tech businesses, or quite large tech businesses that wanted to add some agility to their recruiting and their people management. And then there's sort of fully remote, truly remote, I call them, right? Truly remote, where companies want to attract the best talent wherever that is. And they try to remove borders, whether those are cultural, geographical, language barriers, legislation related ones. And here there's a number of tools like native teams to help them out. So I would say not commuting is
the key.
Here, and I think it's a question of also scalability, because big cities can only scale to some degree. Otherwise, if you take the mega cities of the world, you still have hours of commuting. So then, what would be the real advantage of keep on scaling Mexico City or Tokyo or others? They just become a densely populated country at the end of the day. So that's how I would define it broadly, by defining some sub-segments of companies that behave in different ways. You also asked me why distributed teams. I think the why is very simple, and I'll use Inki's own example. So the founding team is made by myself. I'm Romanian, yet I live in Belgrade because of personal reasons, because of my wife's job. Then we have Kare Kish, who's Hungarian from Budapest. So he sits there. And then we have Christian, he's Romanian, but he's based in London. And then we have Andrew, our CFO, who is British, but is a true digital nomad. So I can't pinpoint him. Or I know right now he's on a flight from London to LA, but that's as narrow as I can get it.
Place him in one place.
That's as narrow as it gets, So I would say that Inki would not exist without the concept of distributed teams. We would simply not be able to gather this amount of talent in a founding team without this concept. Linking yourself to any city, not only Bucharest, Budapest, London, New York. You just, it's very hard to find the right set of people with complementary skills and personalities as well, because the personalities have to complement each other as well. It's just impossible. And I don't, coming from our part of the world, it's kind of hard to believe in these artificial borders, because then you kind of limit your options. So yeah, I think that's why for all businesses it should be, if you need talent and you need agility, linking yourself to any city in the world, any place in the world, feels kind of silly.
Yeah, probably limiting yourself. So you mentioned a few topics that I would really like to focus on during our discussions. So you mentioned scalability and expansion, or possibility expansion. You mentioned talent as accessing new talent, but also acquiring talent from different parts of the world and different type of skills, especially if you need elaborate or very granular skills, then you have to have a larger pool of not necessarily people, but you have to scout them, right? So you have to identify them, and enlarging the area of search will give you a better chance to finding the right people. You also mentioned that we have tools, right? We build tools in order to make remote work a success, or to build this bedrock for companies that scale. And I'll focus a little bit on scalability and expansion. I totally agree with you that talent is key, and some of the companies that we have nowadays in the remote work would not have been on the map to begin with if it wasn't for diverse teams, and if remote was not able to happen, remote work and distributed teams. we ourselves at native teams, we're a very diverse company. Our name is diverse, is a native team, so it's in the DNA of the company. And this is another reason why I'll stop at culture, because culture is very important. But let's speak a little bit about expansion. Why companies grow? How do they grow? What does it mean to be a startup and to have expansion plans? How does companies grow from, in our case, the Balkans or the Central Eastern Europe? How was your expansion journey so far? And how did you go towards, you mentioned how you looked at talent and how you acquired talent, but how was the flow of expansion for you, and where you are now, and what are the plans for the future? And also, what are the profiles, what are the companies that you're aiming to get as clients, and not only in the near future, but also in the far long journey?
So if we focus on growth and scalability, I'll just talk a bit about our client base, which I think it's a good snapshot of this. We have 300 clients in the region. Most of them have some form of remote work. We have a few like large enterprise clients, which might be a little bit more strict on on their policies, on things on how they adopt this model. But most of the clients are very focused on the scalability. And here, I think most of them started off by just slowly expanding their geographical reach. So whether they were, based in Warsaw or Bucharest or Budapest, they started to branch out into other cities, not necessarily having an office, but finding talent there. And we do see this with a number of our clients. They're trying to look into other spots to find talent. So that was very important to most of them. A lot of them started reaching out across borders, especially tech companies. Tech companies, everything is English based, so they don't really care if what's your native tongue. It's not relevant for them generally. And I would say that prior to the pandemic, maybe this was harder, because I remember March we adopted Zoom. And this was 2-3 years before the pandemic, and it felt like, wow, out of this world experience, like great experience. Now Zoom is just a given, all of the platforms kind of do the same. And you have now the best time to start a business, I think, is now, with all the tools that are available to you, but also doing it remotely. It's easiest. It's the easiest now. I think it came because of the cloud infrastructure that was built prior. So it's a sort of natural evolution of the world we live in. So I would say that growth came naturally because of the fight for talent, first of all. Second, because the infrastructure is easier to be done. And here, if you mention tools, of course, we can talk about the fact that Inki provides you devices anywhere, and you don't need to figure out, oh, I have a colleague in Croatia and they broke their laptop, what would I do? Yes, this is something we do. Or then I need to hire a colleague in North Macedonia. What's the payroll? What's the legal setup there? And then they come to native teams and you sort that out for them. But there's also other stuff that is sort of more infrastructure like of building a company. Like back in the day, you need to think about, oh, I need an ERP, I need a database to keep these things. So what do I do? Now you can get Airtable, which is it's like a big Excel with an API, and you can collect the data from various sources, and you can at least start off and do that. Then you could have various no-code tools, like building your own APIs on make.com. This is another like little tip that I can offer people that run distributed teams. Then what else? I don't know.
I think you have many for all the needs you nowadays you have tools, right? So whether it's I don't know, maybe worked in the corporate life, but you want to be a freelancers, you can find gigs, right? You can find different platforms. You can be depending on the skill and where you are in your life and what you want to do further. You can find jobs or just different projects you can onboard on. Then you can, use native teams or similar platforms in order to either get paid, or if you're a company, you can have all your, employees or EORs in one place and kind of have not only control but visibility. Make sure that you're on top of your business. Then you have tools like Inki, that provide this the device of a service, and not only device of a service. And this is one point that we shared, or I shared with you. It's also when you work with Inki, and this is my perception, that you as a employee feel like you're taken care of by the company you work for. So just starting one day being your first day of work and having your laptop or device being already delivered to you with everything you need, I think it's an extra sign of care, right?
Yes.
And I think in the webinars also, Ruxandra, which has the court that built an amazing system for team dynamics. She can map up what are what's the health of interaction in the certain team. So you not only have, let's say, control over the team, but you also make sure that team interacts in a healthy way and align with objectives and the culture and everything else. So I think the further along you go down the stream, nowadays you find tools that could build the entire ecosystem. So it makes it easier for companies to scale. And I think it's a pity not to onboard in this way or to scale easier, because at the end of the day, the whole purpose of scalability is time efficiency, right? You get better people, they do a better job, you grow, you get to larger clients, or penetrate different markets, and all in all, it's growth. That's why we do distributed teams, in order to scale, and we scale because we want to grow, and we want to grow in different region, on different markets. So yeah, feel free to jump in.
Fun little aspect, we hire people in various places, and I always wondered, so what's the first day of a new Inki employee going to look like? Still working from home. In the previous job, they were still at home, right? So nothing really changes when they start working for us. They're like, okay, it's still the same. I still have the same problems, same anxieties or pleasures in life. And we realized, well, we gotta first off deliver the laptop, just have a new laptop, have a new change in life, and that's our trademark. Somebody starts, we deliver the laptop. Ooh, I started a dinky, and how we like to give out like nice shiny new devices, and that's you start off on the right foot. Okay, right, I'm started at Inki. Ooh, I'm unboxing my brand new MacBook. Oh wow, it's a nice experience. Oh, they sent me a little notebook as well, pen, t-shirt or whatever. And this is nice. You gotta replicate that feeling of going into a new office when you're working remotely. It's an emotional thing, but I think it sets the right tone. This is a new beginning for you. We know how to do this remote work thing, so let us help others do the same for their teams. And I think this is kind of something that gives us joy within the team, to be this enabler of people working like this, because we want the best people out there. There are high performers, so we have to high perform ourselves.
So it's wonderful that you tap into the other side of distributed teams. So the benefits are obvious, and we actually map some of them. But what are some of the pitfalls? What are some of the scares or some things that are still to be fine-tuned, or some of the reasons why companies have a hard time working in distributed teams? Because like you mentioned, that engagement, that first day of work, onboarding as a process, right? It's easier when you come in a office and everybody's there and you can say hi and you can introduce yourself and you can, have a personal approach. And you're still nervous, but at least, human interaction helps a lot. So how can we emulate or some of the positive interaction? And right now I'm thinking, obviously the onboarding process, but some of the aspects that companies need to take into account to be able to navigate when they onboard or deploy a distributed team. So whether it's, interaction with staff, whether it's communication, tools for communication, culture, leadership skills, I would like to tap into some of those aspects.
I can only mention what we do and what we've learned along the way. You need engagement. There's two ways of running a team, in my view, and I think this is a sort of setup of the world. You can either have a very I usually call it dictatorial way. So you've got a guy on top, and everything goes. It's very hierarchical. It's very centralized. There's a vacuum of power. I'm not that guy because I don't believe in these setups where there's a superhuman, or at least I'm not, right? So maybe it's just me acknowledging my limits. But so there's one way of one person managing a team. Some would say even micromanaging a team. And in that setup, I think the office is the physical office is a better suited environment for that sort of manager. And there's one that relies more on trust and engagement, where they tell everyone, okay, this is the sort of structure we have, but I rely on you to go out and do your job and incrementally bring the business forward. Be creative about your own job, not just think, oh, you told me to go from A to B. I saw an opportunity to go to C, which was a good idea, but I didn't do it because you didn't tell me. So that's, that I think. And if you look at the, even the countries in the world, right? So you'd have some that might seem disorganized, but at the end of the day, each individual pushes forward by their own work. And so far in history, they've persevered. Those with a very distributed source of value add, like the United States or other in Western Europe. The dictatorial approach, as I call it, have a very good short-term gain, because
Yes, that usually does.
you run the first few miles, you'll always win, but in the long run, the guy on top has to sleep.
Yes, so he cannot overlook all operation all the time.
This is it.
So how does empowering, because you mentioned, giving this trust, and to me, it sounds like empowering your team and empowering your people, not only with trust, but, investing in them, right? Helping them develop, helping them, or, creating a sort of a growth mindset around the culture. So they do have that courage to take, option C and exploit it, right? With that purpose, with the objective of bringing more value, creating more value to it. How do you see empowerment, as you mentioned it, and what are the good sides of it? But also, how do we ensure accountability?
It's a tough question, so I'll try to dodge it as best as I can. I don't know if most people are familiar with this Hofstede study that goes in and studies each culture, each country, and there's one metric called power distance. So
Power distance, yes.
basically, this means how hierarchical are we, right? So if the boss says something, we'll just do it, even if it means throwing ourselves in the depths of the ocean. We'll still do it because the boss said so, and we're not challenging. And in countries like Greece, Romania, the power distance, we're very hierarchical, so we listen to the bosses, whatever the things they say. And I was having this debate with a friend, and he's Greek, and he said, yes, but this is easier for the average person. And I said, how come? The boss is a dictator pushing them, and it's micromanaging. No, it's just they don't bear any responsibilities. They just don't bear the burden. So if it fails, it's the guy on top's fault. It's not my fault. He failed. And I sort of have had an epiphany. And I said, yes, he is right. It is easier to just, be pushed into a direction and not think about the consequences. So how do you breed engagement? I think this works both ways, and you need to establish trust both ways. And if you want to have a high-performing team, you should just keep the guys and girls that are high-performing. Because even if you have someone that's nice and joins the calls and they're there and they're warm and everything, if they don't deliver, then this will have an impact on those that deliver. So the manager's job in a distributed team that wants to scale across geographies, it's much harder than the guy that goes in the office, because it needs to make hard decisions all the time, who they keep, who they don't, having the right metric, being fair, communicating clearly the expectations. But I do think, we've had this conversation before, I do think that this new breed of managers that can run distributed teams, they'll be worth their weight in gold. Because
so the ones that are doing it successfully, right? The ones that have this set of skills. Yeah.
Yes, obviously, yes. Those that do it successfully, I think they will be very valuable, because they can build teams across the world, keep them engaged, and go after the prize like nobody else can. Right? Because you can have the best talent. If you know how to keep them motivated and keep them running, then you can beat anyone that's tied to a location. I'm sorry, and this is the truth. It's harder, but I think it will be very valuable in time if you make that happen.
I agree. I think you're totally right. Those agile type of managers that have and they're not just managers, but they have different competencies, and they understand the business, the objectives, but also could work at grassroots level and understand the people and their needs and how they function and how to grow them, inspire them, motivate them towards team performance, because at the end of the day, we perform better in teams. And I agree that with the Hofstede method, that we have power distance, and us especially, coming from the Eastern Europe, we do have a history of not only the power distance kind of mindset, but we also have a low trust type of setup, right? Where people, and this is also in the Hofstede method, where people can come from a high trust environment or a low trust environment. Eastern Europe usually is from the low trust. But I think that used to be the old way. I think the type of managers that you mentioned and the skills that you've mentioned, it's wonderful for them to have. Will bridge or will cross against the paradigm or the curse of the culture, right? And since we're heading towards culture, how important is culture in distributed teams, and how do we nurture, facilitate a culture, and what is culture and how does it happen? This is also a very good question.
I really enjoy my current role because I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. So as I said, I just have under 10 large enterprises. So most of the clients own the business they're in, and I like to talk to them. This is something that I've always enjoyed, talking to clients, right? And some of them say, I'm not so focused on this culture thing. Maybe later, maybe when we're 200 employees, I'll focus on this. And I'm always like, well, you do have a culture, whether you focused on it or not. Yeah. You still have a culture. Something happened there. It's not like saying there is no culture in this country, in this organization. That doesn't happen. So it's better you have a proactive approach to shaping that culture, thinking how you'd like people to behave in a certain environment, then you control it. Otherwise, it ends up controlling you. And I want to say, now I want to give a positive example here because I deal with them. The two Romanian-based companies, but they have one is a regional player and one is almost a global player. And you can feel the culture in the interaction with all of them. So one of them, the more global one, is FinTech OS, and interacted. I actually counted before the call with 7 people, and they all, have the same friendly, warm approach, but they still negotiate very hard. You do feel that they made an effort to shape the culture internally and feel that they're sort of in the same place, although they're very distributed. They have clients in the US and Western Europe, so it doesn't necessarily mean that they come to the office. Some of them I've seen they have never met in person, but still you can feel that that connection between them. And the other is Autonom. It's a operating leasing company in Romania, but they do business outside as well. And they have this client focus and being agile. Okay, so first listen to the client's request, even if it's kind of ludicrous, but this is sort of, I don't know if they define it, but definitely I've seen it on. So I think these are such nice examples of defining the culture and making an impression on someone from the outside that would then pass on the message. Because what I've just done, I've shared the quintessence of their culture onto many others, and I think this will be very, very valuable for any entrepreneur, even if you're just 2 or 3. The way you react to challenges, the way you react to opportunities. If you're, for example, fearful of taking on a bigger challenge, then your teammates will always have that in mind. You set that example. So it's, if you want to be more risk-taking, then act on it.
Build it in the culture. So you mentioned something really interesting, that no matter, so culture is how people act at the end of the day. If you don't nurture culture, then people act, however they see fit, but there is a way to navigate or kind of sway the culture in a direction that you see is makes the most sense, or you as the leader would have envisioned it to begin with, right? Like you mentioned, we don't have to wait, or we shouldn't wait until we 200 people to build culture, because no matter what we do, culture exists. It's just we haven't took care of it properly, right? Or we didn't drive it in a certain direction. But where does culture start? Does it start from the leader and it goes in the processes, the way you hire, what are the people that you hire, and how do you see it for Inki? or how have you seen it in companies that you not necessarily look up to, but you saw this as being done in a valuable way?
My philosophy in building teams is that we should be very different. So I really believe in a diverse skill set, background, cultures. Um, um, you know, I like any other guy. I like sports, and if you look at football or any other team sport, you know, you have a guy that's very good sitting at the front to score goals. You have a goalie, you have defenders, you have midfielders, you have wingers. They're all very different, right? So you don't need a team of Messi. If you have a you know, just Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, you might have a very poor defense, right? So you might score 20 goals in one game, but you might get 30 in return. So you don't need that. You don't need to replicate yourself. So if you're an entrepreneur and you're very good at sales or very good at building or very good at being structured, then you need someone creative. You need to a complementary skill set. But your question was more around, so how do you control it? I think everyone has an impact on the culture. Everyone in the team has an impact on the culture, including your clients. So the clients you bring in will have an impact on the culture. I think every little thing contributes. And you have to be very mindful. If you're in a leadership position, you might just see the ship steer left, right, backwards, forwards, whatever. And you need to interfere right then and there, because there's a sequence of things that happened that made the ship go right. And I see a lot of people go, I want to find the source of the trouble. It's too late. Let it go. Try to steer it in the right way. Finding the culpable will just define the culture of you know, let's find what's wrong. No, you need to move forward and steer the ship. You know, if you know, if a wind comes and steers the boat right, you know, you're not going to fight with the wind, right? You're going to steer the ship and keep on going forward. You got to be mindful of the reactions. You can't control everything. A lot of things will happen, and you'll just do your best, and it will be a winding road. A lot of people say, okay, I've set this goal, and I'll go in a straight line there. There's no such thing. Nowhere. You know, people have spent a lot of money building straight roads, but that took millennia to reach to the level we are today to be able to streamline everything we do. So I think it's a work in progress, and I think allowing some degree of freedom as well as risk within the team is very important. I was at this event, and we had a dinner, and there was this rock climber doing you know, like a little speech, and I was curious. I'm not very sporty myself. I was curious. This rock climbing, is it a team sport? Is it an individual sport? So how do they behave? And the guy said it can be both, but when it's a team sport and you do like you climb on a rock, the guy on the top sets the pace and is the guy that's taking a lot of risk, because all of the others are secured on the rope that he lays out for the rest of the team. And okay, that must be a hard job. And he said, no, it's very hard to keep up with the guy. He said, how come he has to do all the work? No, because of the risk he's taking, you feel like he has supernatural strength to go out because he's risking his life. You're secure.
Yes, adrenaline-driven type of leadership in that case.
Pushes him forward, gives him an extra strength. And I was like, wow, yeah. So you can't, you know, even within the team, you can't protect against any risk from outside, because if you're like very relaxed and you know you're happy, what's the action you need to do when you're happy? Nothing. You just sit there on the couch, but there's no perpetual happiness. How do you know you're happy if you're not unhappy, if you don't have a little bit of a struggle in your life, you know, muscle pain? You need that rupture to feel that you're happy. So you need to distribute the risk and within the team, also because, you know, it can break the leader, so to speak. So you need to bring this engagement. I believe in this yin and yang. You got to distribute it to some level within the team, so you create this alignment. At least that's what I believe in, and I believe that also, and I practice it because we're a team of 4 co-founders. We have Katerina on the team. She joined later, but she also is a shareholder. So at the end of the day, I do practice the sharing of both risks and the reward of taking that risk, and I think that creates long-term engagement. You can't do it otherwise, because at the end of the day, if you're taking all the risk and all the benefit of the risk, obviously, then the others are just there for a normal job. They could be working for any large corporate, any state institution, and so on and so forth. So that's how I think is. And this is why I said that being a manager is very hard, because you need to not release too much stress, keep it under ropes, so to speak. Sorry if I went a little bit further, but
No, I think you touched on a few of the subjects that are built in the diverse teams, but also it made me think of another good question. So we do have, we talked about culture, we talked about empowerment, we talked about the roles of the manager. But what about communication? Because this could also be challenging for distributed teams. We do want to have engagement, but how do we have engagement, and how do we develop proper communication channels in order to make sure that everybody is on board? And what do we do if everybody is not on board? Talking about accountability, what happens when we don't feel that there's accountability?
This is hard. So I'm not gonna lie to you. It's going to be hard. It's easier if you're in an open space and yell, "Hey, dude, what's with that project? How are we doing that?" And you can do that in a normal tone. Otherwise, let's set up a call. It gets all of a sudden more formal. I have not really cracked this, so I wouldn't want to say that, but definitely you need to meet in person from time to time, breathe the same air. We do this, we do these things at Inki. We meet, we call it an on-site. Normal companies call it an off-site when they go out of the office. As we don't go to the office, so we do the opposite. We call it an on-site. The thing is, you have people that really want to meet, and people that are introverted. They don't see the value. It's a lot of time away from family and things like that. So it's a bit of a struggle. But I think meeting in person from time to time, and we go to an extreme. It's sort of like a camp. We sleep in the same place, eat in the same place. So it's like camp. Okay, there are no tents. don't get me wrong, but the concept of being all together in a common space is there. And actually, I can recommend. There's plenty of nice spaces to do this in Transylvania and Romania, where they have these Saxon villages, and you can go there and share a space, and it feels a lot more communal. So I think the answer is to have these in-depth sessions where you communicate, you work on priorities, redefine them, sort of steer the ship. This is where you went a little bit haywire, then you get everyone aligned. And I think those events are very useful. I think you have to define your expectations clearly. They might change with time to time, but you need to do a reassessment and communicate clearly. You shouldn't shy away from saying you're not doing a good job, this is not going well, we need you to do this. It's only fair. Like, I've seen these layoffs where everybody's like surprised. Last week you told me I'm amazing. Yeah, well, you weren't really amazing, but I didn't bother giving you the sort of proper feedback. So, but this is difficult, and this is why I said the managers that crack working remotely and having continuous engagement will be very valuable, because this is hard, keeping that momentum going without everybody commuting to the same space. It is harder, but you can reach higher altitudes in that form.
Wonderful. So when it comes to communication channels and also ways of receiving or giving feedback and feed forward, what do you guys use, or what is your approach or recommendation? We use different tools for communication, and they work for us because you have certain communication channels that are emulating the water cooling experience, where everybody can say, you have certain channels where you can feel like sharing different day-to-day things, or even personal or achievements, like more in a personal area of things. But you also have channels that you can be more task oriented and ask for teammates to join your certain task, so it's more efficient towards getting a certain job done or a task done. I was wondering what you guys used. For us, it works because it feels that it emulates both components of our life in related to work. Both this feeling of a team, but also the focus and no noise needed when it comes to a task being handled. And for me personally, this works quite well, but also the video calls, right? To see each other, to kind of spend some time together and speak about where we are, what challenges we have, learn from one another. I think that's very important, because you tend to feel secluded many times and live within your bubble in your head most of the time. So it feels to reach out and build these bridges towards colleagues. And I think the on-site events, like you mentioned, you guys meet up, bring a new value, right? We spend time together and we build not only trust, but we build moments together, because that it is harder to do offsite.
So you have these sessions where you sort of have a water cooler type of conversation, like catch up what you did over the weekend, or what are your plans over the weekend. This is
Yeah, you have certain channels. We use Slack, right? We use Slack, and we have different channels. Some you can share general things, what books you read, what's new with you. But then you have very you have one-on-one conversation or groups of conversation depending on certain task. We use Asana that helps us to concentrate on the tasks that we have on hand. So those are more efficient, and it's easier to onboard colleagues because we are also spread out in different countries, and we also work asynchronously. So we have teammates that are on different time zones. So that helps us work well together. And yeah, I was wondering if you guys are there yet, but or not. You don't need you're in the same kind of similar time zones, and it makes it easier, just distributed in different locations throughout Europe, except the colleague that's flying to LA.
Actually being very mobile, he I think he has most in-person meetings with the other colleagues by being so mobile. So
Nice.
I have to hand it to him. I don't know if we're the right example, because we use too many tools, because we're so techy, right? We have Asana, we have Teams, we have a variety of things we use in order to keep each other connected. We might overdo it, and there's little structure in what tools we use. And we actually have an active project of reducing, what is Slack for? What is WhatsApp for? What is Asana for? What's email? We use email to a very little degree. It's more for the calendar, to be honest. We use this tool called Missive, as I mentioned initially, where we can have shared mailboxes and collaborate on clients that are in various parts of the world. I'm not sure we're the best example. We try to overdo it, but I didn't fight against the overdoing of the communication, because I think it's nice, even if it's a bit more chaotic. The fact that people invent ways of communicating or of being engaged with one another is a part of the culture that I like, and because we're techies and we want to be innovative. The thing is, somebody comes in, I have a new collaboration tool, and everybody goes, oh, let me take a look. You kind of like that within the team. But I think keeping it fresh and changing the way you do it every once in a while also adds to the engagement. So if somebody's out there going like, I'd like one communication tool to use forever for the remote teams, I think that's a chimera somewhere that you'll never reach. I think you'll always find something better, and you should be aiming for renewing. Philosophically, I don't believe in stagnation. I think teams, organizations, countries, whatever, they're either growing or decreasing. So there's no there's a little bit on the top, again, with a rock climber saying, yeah, no, you get there and there's a guy responsible to tell you to get out, to get off the peak, because it has this allure of, I've reached the top and I want to sit here for the rest of my life. But it's really very dangerous, so you gotta get off the peak. And I think in businesses it's like that. You either continue to strive for growth, for new things, or then you're cutting costs.
I want to do a cool exercise with you, because from the get-go, I think we're native teams and Inki have a culture fit. And I think we both agreed that when we had our first business meeting. But then I built this exercise for this webinar that could show in different ways, how we help our clients, and how do you guys help your clients on different type of topics. So for instance, we're streamlining processes when it comes to payroll. You guys are streamlining processes when it comes to devices, right? And I will go through the rest, and maybe you can share a little bit of the angle, right? So when it comes to payroll processes, we take care of the payroll process and distributed team members, ensuring the accurate and time effective ways of payment in everybody's location, and kind of handle the complexity of payroll, because payroll is usually very complex. I would like you to do the same, and then I'll go through a few more topics to see if we can manage to tick boxes in all of the categories that I put here.
Right. Would be, let me see how I start. I think in serving distributed teams, the number one added value that I would mention is the agility. So clients can, order a laptop and then upgrade, downgrade it, cancel the subscription anytime they want. So giving you the agility to do so, I think it's a very important part of the value proposition. Not to mention the cash flow benefits. So you no longer buy devices, you just pay a monthly fee to rent them out. There's one aspect that I'd highlight is the security aspect. All our systems, Business Manager, Android Zero Touch, we have our MDM, which is free of charge for the clients. They get access to a platform where they can remotely lock, remotely wipe the device. And I always give out this example of clients saying, oh yeah, but we're a small team. we just hired, we have control. And I said, yeah, well, in a bank, 70% of the crime that happens is linked to employees. I'm not saying you shouldn't trust your team, but the ability to protect your data, I think it's instrumental. And we've had this case with a company that registered in Germany, and they had a developer, and the developer was working in another full-time job, and that's illegal in Germany. And the authorities caught wind of this, and they were investigating. And this rogue employee, I would call it, ran off with the 2 laptops of his 2 employers. One of them was our client, the other one was not, but our client could remotely lock the device and remotely wipe the device in order for him not to have a breach of the
Just so you know, you jumped into my second topic, which was the risk. Same, I wanted to do this mirroring, right? But you already responded on risk and security. We at Native Teams take let's say we mitigate the risk by taking the responsibility for all the employment related matters. And like you mentioned, you already talked about security and how you guys address the topic.
I mean, you're taking all of the hassles of dealing with the local authorities and labor offices and things like that, right?
Yeah, we're mitigating the risk by taking care of all these hassles, but we're also reducing the exposure of compliance risks, lawsuits, penalties of international employment, because payroll is could be quite complicated, but since we have local teams in all the countries, then it makes it very easy for us. And I will go with this topic on the next subject in my little game, which is benefits that we offer locally, right? What is your experience? So, for instance, we offer Native Teams offers local benefits to employees. So, I was wondering if you can give us an example. What is the local benefit that the end user, for instance, in Inki Tech feels? Like you mentioned, getting your device at home, bigger engagement, but are there other benefits that they have when they use Inki Tech, whether it's from the company or the end user?
I think one of the things that we don't talk so often about is the fact that we give access to the best devices, because the employer doesn't have to, pay up front. They can afford to buy a better device for the end user, whether it's an employee, a subcontractor, or anything. And especially if it's a subcontractor, right? If you're a freelancer or self-employed, you don't usually get access to any sort of financing for devices or even insurance for it. So I think this is one of the local benefits. The individual will get a better user experience of having that device. And in some cases, subcontractors might get access to a way of getting the best device without breaking the bank.
And the last one, and I think again we can meet, although there are a few sub benefits, right? And we can look at them in the mirror. Like for instance, flexibility, but the flexibility is implied to both of our solution. But the last one that I think is most relevant, especially for companies, is cost efficiency. So Native Teams obviously offers this cost efficiency through the payroll related functions that we offer towards the company. And maybe you can share with us how are the budgets for devices in a company can look cost efficiency, especially in the long-term view of the budgets.
Sure. We talk a lot about something called total cost of ownership. So companies usually say, okay, I got to buy a laptop, it's €1,000, that's my cost. No, it's not. Things when you have more than one laptop, even if you have one, but if you have more, the incidence is higher. You'll have repairs to handle. You'll have warranty related ones or not warranty related ones. You'll have accidental damage, loss, so on, security breaches, and all these things. You'll have employee downtime. You'll have your own management time to source a device and also decommission a device. Something people never think about and they end up with devices in drawers because, you know, they never thought that the laptop is something, or the phone is something that doesn't last forever. They don't plan for the end of the life cycle. They don't plan for the fact that in Europe there's a law saying you have to keep a registry of all the waste you create, and e-waste is in particular focus. So you need to show that you've handled the laptops, and especially their batteries, because those are very polluting, in a sustainable way, found a way to recycle them and things like that. So what we do is, because we rent out the device and we take them back after the contract ends, and we renew them. So you use the laptop for 2 years, for example. We take the device back, and after 2 years, we give you a brand new one. We take the old one back, we refurbish it to extend the life cycle. So we increase the residual value. So that from that increase in residual value, we're able to finance all these nice services that we offer you. And companies, you know, they don't have a plan to do that, and they don't have, you know, the logistic infrastructure that we have to handle this. So they end up paying an actual higher cost, but it's hidden because there isn't a line in the budget goes like repairs for my 1,000 laptops.
It's probably diluted within time, and nobody can map it out somewhere. It's not a line.
You have a surprise expense. So I would say that the total cost of ownership is significantly lower. We've actually calculated this with a few clients, so it's 30 to 40% a better total cost of ownership if you switch to Inki, because we can take advantage of the residual value that the devices have. Because a lot of companies think, I'll just use it for 5 years until it breaks, and I'll squeeze all the value out of it. But no, you lose a lot of time with employee downtime, with your management time, extra costs for repairs and refurbishments and the likes. So yes, cost is a big component.
The same for us. I think putting a solution out there that brings cost efficiency and productivity in the process of payroll. I think this is something that is very important to companies, especially when you have a larger number of employees, or you have you know, no legal entity in certain countries that you find talent, and you want that talent, but no way, or you know, quite elaborate, complicated way to establish a company in a country where maybe the whole purpose is just to acquire talent. So native teams can easily do that, and for a company, obviously means a total reduction, but also access to a talent that they probably wouldn't have tapped into if they were not to use a solution like ours. I think we went a little bit overboard with time. I think we could have had another, you know, hour added at least to this topic. But I would really like to have you again as a guest in one of our future webinars, because not only do we have a culture fit, not only do we have a similar DNA as far as our growth and where we started, and some of the hurdles and learnings that we shared at similar kind of time. But I think the road ahead is quite interesting. And it's always nice to find people that want to grow in a sustainable and healthy way, to build strong teams, and to be able to scale and expand in a beautiful kind of way. Not only, you know, not only through the mentality of productivity and money at any cost. You know, they also want to do good and have a wonderful blueprint or footprint in the market for a really long time. And I think, as you mentioned, that good manager will make a difference in the long run. I also think that healthy companies will have a better journey and more success in the long run, because things are changing and employees are changing and companies are also changing. So see you soon. And thank you so much, Liviu.
It was lovely to be here. Thank you for your questions and the environment as well.
Thank you, and see you soon. Bye. Have a good evening. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for staying with us.